The state of local government in this country is dismal, to say the least. The ANC, though, chooses to use the words cause for serious concern. The Auditor-General's report shows the country's municipalities remain under-capacitated, a problem which explains the high rates of irregular expenditure and corruption, for example. Not that it's not known what needs to be done, but be that as it may, government is dedicating this week to dealing with local government. The aim is to provide for national reflection on issues affecting local government, they say. This in order to accelerate the delivery of services. That sounds like I'm quoting from quite an elaborate government statement, doesn't it? Well, let's discuss this then with my two guests, Dr. TK Pooe from Wits University. We also have Professor Barry Hanyane from the Northwest University. They join me now. There they are. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you both. Let me start with you, Dr. Pooe. This year's Local Government Week is being held under the theme ensuring capable and financially sound municipalities. How far are we from that goal?
Well, if we're to judge the Auditor-General's last 5 reports, we are very far away from that. And I think it's a bit alarming that you would say that is your theme, because you would, if you actually read the 1998 government local white paper, you actually find that that's almost a given that you should be financially responsible. So I don't see why you need a theme to emphasize what you should naturally be doing.
Prof, Dr. Pooe makes a good point in that this message about getting municipalities on the right track has been repeated many times over the years, yet in 2020, we're still hearing the same theme, the same promises. Why are we still stuck here?
Thembekile, a very good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to Dr. Pooe, your viewers as well. I think it's reflective of a lack of science when it comes to really turning around our municipalities into a more profitable entities. And I'm using the word profitable deliberately, since government doesn't in actual fact promote profitability. It's more about the welfare of the people. So in this instance, it's lack of expert know-how of how to really do the job right without necessarily politicizing the issues, especially in this sphere of government.
On depoliticization, then, what are the chances of that happening? Because as things stand, it's not that just the ANC, for example, that when it wins a municipality deploys its own people.
Well, that's a point, isn't it? That the ANC's power, by and large, has been used incorrectly. And until such time that you have serious contestation in this space of government, we are likely to see a different trajectory, a different governance culture, and of course a competitive system that would allow ordinarily your independent delegates, opposition parties. And yes, I can't wait for the next coming elections to see the possibility of that taking place. Otherwise, as things stand, the hegemony that the ANC enjoys seems to be somewhat a cushion against all sorts of reforms that are needed in pursuing a developmental mandate for local government.
So, Dr. Pooe, another message then from what the Prof is saying about depoliticizing the running of our municipalities also has been said for years. Those who are governing in these areas don't seem to agree. So how do we move forward when we can't even agree on that basic thing?
I like the way you frame it. How do we move forward? Well, look, as the good prophet said, there's a science behind this. And I think one of the best examples we could actually use from developing countries would be the Indian and also the Chinese example, which is to say, you actually deploy your best and brightest to local government. That's actually not the case at the moment. And on top of that, because it's a two-layered thing, there is the politicians, and I think we've said enough about politicians. We also have to look at the administrative arm. And one of the things they do in India and China, which is a bit different, is you need to write an exam in order for you to enter government. And your promotion is based on the performance of the entity in which you are leading. And as a civil servant, you are given almost like a rope of performance, which is to say, the rules and laws would allow you to get in the best and the brightest to actually attend to issues, as Prof said, of economic development. And the politicians it's not that they're put on the wayside, it's just that politicians are also expected to say, listen, you cannot now go sit at you cannot be MMC of economic development and finance or infrastructure, yet you have no degree in infrastructure, you have no degree in the economics and the science of it. So what happens is that you get a twin process of not only education, but also experience. So if people are saying, how do we move forward? It's quite simple. Let's actually get the best and brightest into government from both sides, from the civil service and also from the politicians. And then let's judge it properly, because we all know what the problem is, and I don't think we need to go on and make this a PhD about it. But the issue is quite simple. Let's get the best and brightest into it, and let's judge them on that. Until we see that, what we're simply doing is we're running around like a dog chasing its tail, and we're going to be doing this for the next 10 years.
Professor Hanyane, the issue with getting the best and brightest is the highly qualified, highly skilled people say, well, we don't want to go into those environments because if you do go in, the systems are set up in such a way that because of the political factors at play, even with the best intentions, you're almost destined to fail.
Yeah. Look, we obviously have to clean our polity. I don't have a ready-made solution when it comes to that, because it's a very fluid and evolving space. But rightly so, our politics is marred by, take for instance, the KZN issue, the killing of politicians, of officials. Purging, on the other hand, seems to be the characteristic of managing politics for local government, or perhaps any other sphere of government for that matter. However, one thing remains. Our politics is marred with what one can refer to as evil governance. And once we clear that path, much more easy. And let me agree with Dr. Pooe that until our public service in general, including local government, we are able to embrace principles of meritocracy, for instance. Issues of service delivery protests, corruption, maladministration, getting qualified reports, and all sorts of ill-gotten practices when it comes to governance will not go away anytime soon.
So again, I want to go back to that statement from Parliament about Local Government Week. Just to read for you, they say the main focus, according to Parliament, is this year on how national and provincial spheres of government intend to assist local government in improving service delivery, financial management and governance. It would never, Dr. Pooe, be a task that would be resolved in a week, would it?
I think the statement actually has a lot of fundamental flaws. For one, if you read the Constitution, specifically on local government, the role of provincial government is actually quite silent. And that you're asking how do we go forward. One of the things I've always proposed is we need to get rid of provincial government. Within the Constitution, and if you look at the context of service delivery, they're more of a hindrance to actually assisting local government than anything else. And so that's maybe one of the things we should actually park on the wayside. And two, it seems as though we're doing this run for the longest time. And I'm sure in your statement, if you read later on, they speak about such a thing as a district model, because I know that's the new language they like using this year, the district model. Yet again, if I just go back to the white paper of 1998, especially Section D, number 3, there was actually discussions of this district model. So that either means one of two things. One, it means the government at national level, as long as local government level, have not been reading their own policies for the last 2 decades. And let's maybe be kind and say they've been reading them. Or secondly, it could simply mean that there is actually a dearth of ideas as to how to move forward. And if that's the case, I think they need to be humble enough to go, consult with other institutions, say, how do we move forward? Because I think that the trap we always get into with these discussions, especially in South Africa, is there's a belief that time stands still. And that's not actually the case. If you look at never mind the ratings agencies, just look at the state of the economy and how people are living in townships and rural areas. Time has not stood still for those people. They are still the marginalized, they're still the excluded. And the longer we go on with these gymnastics of how big we can make our policies and the words we can use for the year, the longer these people are going to remain outside. So for me, it's an issue. We just need to clear this thing out now.
Mm-hmm. And Doctor, I want us to expand on something that you raised at the beginning of your response, the issue of provincial government as a hindrance. Just expand on that for us.
Well, within the Constitution, there's never actually been a clear indication of what happens when a municipality doesn't work well. A clear case and example is what's happened in Gauteng with regards to the city of Tshwane and also the city of Joburg, where the MEC of Gauteng, of local government, was actually saying, listen, I'm going to take this under administration. Well, he lost both cases in court. And then the question was going to be, even if you were to take them under administration, who do you deploy from provincial government to actually go run a municipality? Because as things currently stand, as Prof Barry said, it's such a specialized field that most times you don't get people who understand how local government works in the provincial sphere. And the reason I said it's a hindrance is if you look at the money we put into provincial government, from legislatures to departments, what we're actually paying people to do is duplicate reports which go to national government. So if basically we're duplicating roles and responsibility, is not the responsible or the fiscal thing to do is amalgamate provincial government and local government, make sure that resources can actually get adequately addressed to where we need them most. Because what tends to happen with local government is a lot of the money is actually going towards salaries, not actually the service delivery as we know it. So that's what I mean, it's a hindrance.
Professor Hanyane, the SALGA president, South African Local Government Association President Thembekile Mrototo, speaking this week, spoke of how local government is responsible for 46% of constitutional functions, but only gets 9.1% of the fiscus. Is that a massive hindrance?
Not only that, it's a multitude of issues. We've got to look at the municipal tax base as well. How sufficient is that? And immediately you do your inspection in that particular space, you then are confronted with challenges such as non-payment of services, which contributes obviously negatively in terms of the ability of municipalities to raise own revenue. And at the end of the day, as Dr. Pooe says, much of CAPEX is spent towards salaries, less so on service delivery. And this is where the heart of the problem is.
Dr. Pooe, very quickly, municipalities, we heard from the Cooperative Governance Minister, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, a few weeks ago, were owed over 127 billion rand. This was at the end of the financial year in June by households, 181 billion rand plus from slowed business activity, tax evasion, and again, the issue of those poor collection services. Is that money down the drain at this point?
I would say, looking at the current economic condition, I wouldn't say it's down the drain. It's just that I think you need a very nuanced form of government to be able to discuss with people, as Prof said, who are struggling to pay, to say, listen, what can we do when the economy we hope, when the economy turns around, for us to be able to actually get that money? And for this, you need institutions and people at the helm that are actually sensitive to what's happening, not simply going to say, well, we know we're owed money.
All right, thank you both, Dr. TK Pooe from Wits University and Professor Barry Hanyane with the Northwest University for that conversation. It is Local Government Week. This is Newsgrid.